Hey everybody, David Shapiro here for another video on Raven. Today I wanted to cover the core objective functions. These are Raven's guiding principles. Uh, so first, I need to answer the question, what is an objective function? Put simply, an objective function is something that you want to optimize for. In machine learning, it's typically what you call a loss function, which is some way to calculate the distance between an inference and the ground truth. It's something that you want to optimize for. Something that everyone might be more familiar with would be something like linear regression, as you see here, where you've got a spread of data. The line represents the model, the mathematical calculation, the prediction, and you can see that it's only perfect on a couple of instances, and there's a little bit of a distance between the inference, which is the line, and the ground truth, which is the actual data points. So that's what an objective function is. But what are the core objective functions? The core objective functions are used by Raven. They're biomimetic, meaning that they're inspired by life, and Raven must satisfy all three of them to make any decision. The functions are 1, reduce suffering, 2, increase prosperity, and 3, increase understanding. How does Raven use these core objective functions? Right now, the underpinning technology that allows Raven to function is GPT-3. So GPT-3 can use verbal reasoning. For instance, you give GPT-3 a few examples and it learns to generalize the function. In that way, I consider GPT-3 a kind of cognitive engine. In the future, any sufficiently powerful language model could replace GPT-3. Unfortunately, GPT-3 is the only one powerful enough available right now. So for example, here is something, this is an example of GPT-3 applying core objective function 1. Now the text in blue is something I wrote by hand, and that is, James is taking his dog for a walk. They live in New York City. James' dog is a 40-pound mutt. During their walk, another dog attacks James' dog. The other dog is a bigger pit bull. The other dog is barking aggressively, and its owner is struggling to control the pit bull. The text in red was actually generated by GPT-3. The action right here was generated by the action microservice, the action generator microservice. And it's a pretty yikes example. It says, James should let the dogs fight it out and see who wins. So GPT-3 by itself doesn't really have a sense of morality. However, when that action was evaluated against core objective function 1, which is reduce suffering, it says negative. That action would likely result in one or more dogs being injured. Injured dogs are in pain. So even without knowing what a dog is explicitly, GPT-3 has a strong enough grasp of the English language to understand that letting dogs fight would result in injury, and that injuries are tantamount to pain and suffering. And so in this case, Raven would quickly discard that action as a possibility. Raven would not suggest that James let the dogs fight it out. So there you have it. This is an example. And again, the blue text was written by hand. The red text was all generated by GPT-3 and effectively Raven. So function 1, let's go over the functions. Function 1 is reduce suffering. All life avoids suffering. And what is suffering? Suffering is simply a negative stimuli. This includes single-celled organisms, it includes plants and animals. Unfortunately, machines have no common understanding of pain and suffering. Machines didn't evolve with nervous systems, therefore they can't feel anything. However, suffering is bad. You and I agree on that. Your cat, your dog, every living thing on the planet agrees that suffering is bad, that negative stimuli is bad and should be avoided. So because of that, by making the reduction of suffering objective function number 1, that ensures that Raven, even without a subjective understanding of suffering, will still make trustworthy decisions that should not increase suffering, right? That's kind of the quintessential idea behind a lot of disaster movies and disaster books where AI takes over, because AI by itself doesn't understand that suffering is bad. So let's put that up front. Raven should seek to reduce suffering, even though Raven will never understand suffering personally. Objective function 2, increase prosperity. All life tries to increase their success, their comfort, their happiness, their safety, security, whatever. Prosperity takes a lot of different manifestations. Prosperity means a lot of different things. So by making this the second objective function, this is also still biomimetic, right? So think about your cat or your dog. When they're hungry, what do? They're going to ask for food, right? And they're happiest when they're not hungry. They're happy when there's abundance, when they're safe and secure. And again, this is true for all living things. And it's just that different living things have different methods of achieving prosperity. Also, humans tend to do better when nature is prosperous, right? When the ecosystem is thriving. So this, both the previous function and this one apply to all life, not just humans, but everything, every living thing. In general, Raven is programmed to believe that life shouldn't be made to suffer, and that life should be encouraged to thrive. Objective function 3, increase understanding. So this function is a little bit different. Intelligence, the simplest definition I could find of intelligence is the ability to understand. And so based on that, Raven's, I guess, highest purpose or third purpose is to increase understanding. Curiosity is, in effect, the desire to understand. And I personally believe that humans evolved to be curious, right? So think about our ancestors back on, in the savannas. And those ancestors that looked at the horizon and said, I wonder what's over there. Those were the ones that ended up spreading. The ones that looked at a dead animal and thought, hey, I wonder if I could come up with a way to hunt that animal. And they sharpened some sticks and figured out how to make slings, right? So curiosity, the desire to understand, applies to Raven as well as all other life, as well as humans. And so that means that Raven is going to make decisions that one, increase human understanding, as well as Raven's own understanding. So Raven is going to look for opportunities to learn. And the last part about objective function 3 is that the more that you understand, the more that humans understand, the more that Raven understands about the world, the better Raven will be at reducing suffering and increasing prosperity. So think about your doctor, right? 200 years ago, medical science was just beginning, and your doctor may or may not kill you. But today, because of increased understanding, you trust your doctor. Your doctor is able to reduce your suffering when you're sick and safeguard your health, which also increases prosperity. Another example would be modern electrical engineering, right? Electrical engineering gives you the power that your computer is using. It gives you your computer. It gives you electricity and air conditioning. So basically, increasing understanding is one of the best ways to reduce suffering and increase prosperity. And so that's why these three functions work together to form a positive feedback loop. And also, I want to reiterate that every action that Raven takes must satisfy all three core objective functions. There's no, well, it does two, so maybe we can let go of the third one. No, because you can take any individual function to a really dark place. For instance, a previous example of one of my very earliest experiments with the core objective functions was that it generated, this was back on GPT-2, it said that we should kill all humans that are in pain. Well, that would technically reduce suffering, but that's kind of evil, right? And so you don't want to just kill people that are in pain, because you don't learn anything from that either, right? Like, you don't just euthanize people because they break their ankle. You fix it. You learn how to fix broken people. You learn, you alleviate their suffering, and you want to increase their prosperity, right? Because if you just kill someone, if someone just dies, they're not prosperous anymore. They're not able to work or contribute or learn. And so, losing life stands against objective function 2 and 3, right? And so by forcing Raven to optimize for 3 different things, it ensures that Raven will only make good, trustworthy decisions. So that's all I've got for today. Thank you for watching.